Okay, I can only assume that the reason why you clicked this video is because you want to be spoiled, or you've already seen the Flash movie. So here we are, the Flash movie spoilers review. So the Flash movie is out in theaters right now, and people are already posting their spoilers reviews, so I decided, why not? And yeah, we'll definitely talk about this guy, don't worry, we'll get there. But first, let's talk about the movie. So starting off, we get this incredible action sequence, and then we even get Gal Gadot showing up as Wonder Woman to save the DCEU Bruce Wayne played by Ben Affleck. And that part was kind of silly, but it worked to a comedic effect. And we also noticed that Wonder Woman flies off, meaning that Wonder Woman 1984 is definitely canon. Now the Flash decides to go back in time to save his mom. And the way he decides to do this is to put a can of tomatoes into his mom's cart so that his dad, Henry Allen, doesn't ever leave the house and she doesn't get killed. He tries to travel back to the present time and he gets knocked out by this, let's just call him Dark Flash. He gets knocked into a time where, yes, Henry Allen is there, he's not in jail, and most importantly, his mother is still alive. He meets his younger Barry Allen self before he got his powers. He finds out that in this time, this is about when the young Barry Allen needs to get his powers. And so he tries to repeat that event, but something goes wrong, and young Barry Allen gets the power from the present Barry Allen, and the present Barry Allen loses his powers. And then he realizes that this is the timeline with General Zod coming down to invade, so he needs to get all the different heroes together, but apparently none of the heroes are around. In fact, Arthur Curry doesn't even exist. Arthur Curry is the name of Thomas Curry's dog. And he figures out something is definitely wrong with this timeline when they go and meet Bruce Wayne. And this Bruce Wayne is played by Michael Keaton, who says that he opened up the multiverse, and the symbolism for that is a bowl of spaghetti. Now he figures he still needs to find Superman, but they end up rescuing Supergirl instead. And eventually Supergirl actually helps Present Barry get his powers back as well. And they all come together to go and defeat General Zod before he does the Black Zero event. This is where Supergirl finds out that General Zod had actually killed Kal-El as a baby, finding that the Codex was actually put into Kara instead. And so within this battle where Present Barry is training young Barry trying to take down Kryptonians, Michael Keaton sacrifices himself and dies by colliding into a Kryptonian ship. Supergirl also dies as well, and they suck the Codex out of her. And this is where young Barry convinces Present Barry that they have to go back in time just a little bit to prevent the deaths of Batman and Supergirl. And so this battle here repeats itself over and over, but to no avail. Batman still dies countless times. Supergirl dies countless times. It doesn't matter. And within this moment where Present Barry is trying to follow young Barry by repeating this battle over and over, young Barry starts to get all these different Kryptonian shrapnel stuck on him. The evil Dark Flash shows up once again because we find out that Dark Flash is actually young Barry Allen going through this battle many, many different times to change the outcome that is unchangeable. And he's already an old man, but he's totally covered in this black, weird-looking outfit with a lot of this Kryptonian shards and shrapnel all over his body. And this is where we get to see a ton of cameos, exciting stuff here for DC fans. Present Barry looks out into the multiverse, seeing all these different worlds. We get to see George Reeves' Superman. We get to see a black and white Batman that could either be Adam West or even Robert Lowry. I'm not really sure. And then the Superman that I grew up with shows up. Christopher Reeve Superman. He flies down. CGI, yes, but it's still really cool Then right next to them is Helen Slater as Supergirl. And to me, this was a crowd-pleasing moment for me. As a kid, I've always wanted to see Christopher Reeve's Superman standing next to Helen Slater's Supergirl and together. Because in the Helen Slater Supergirl movie, Christopher Reeve didn't want to show up for that movie, and so they resorted to, pointing to a poster of Christopher Reeve's Superman, and she's like, well, that's my cousin. No, when I was a kid, I wanted to see them together, and to see that in this movie is very satisfying. But that's not all. As I grew up in the 90s, there was going to be a movie with Nicolas Cage as Superman, and so seeing him here is just amazing. Yes, it's CGI, but it's still satisfying to see that scene that John Schnepp had talked about in his documentary, The Death of Superman Lives, where he fights a giant spider, and it's so awesome to see an actual battle kind of just play out in that moment. And it's just to satisfy Superman fans my age who knew about that movie, and maybe you're a fan, I don't know if you are, but it's kind of awesome to see Nicolas Cage finally have the suit on and become Superman and have a cool ass scene like that. And there's other cameos too, even before we even had Henry Cavill as Superman throwing a punch. I've talked about that as well. And we also see Teddy Sears from the CW, who played Professor Zoom, actually be Jay Garrick in this multiverse scene as well. So after seeing those cool multiverse cameos in there, also revealed that Dark Flash had knocked present Barry into this timeline to begin with to start the process for young Barry Allen to become Flash. But he also realizes that present Barry must die in order to try and save Batman and Supergirl. But young Barry Allen gets in the way and gets killed, hereby making Dark Flash disappear because that's him. Older. So present Barry decides to try to fix this whole thing. He goes back in time, and in an emotional scene where he has to kind of say goodbye to his mom, he takes out the can of tomatoes and puts it back on the shelf. Then he goes back to the present time in the main timeline. But something's different, and this is something that he has done himself. Because before, Henry Allen couldn't get out of jail. The only evidence they have was him at the store, but they couldn't see him because his face was down. Well, this time Barry Allen had put the can of tomato a little higher on the shelf so that Henry Allen would look up at the camera and they would see that he didn't kill his wife. Which is interesting because this movie did not get into who actually killed his wife. I mean, in the future or a sequel or something, I hope they explore that. Is it Reverse Flash? Is it Professor Zoom? Is it something else entirely? I don't know, but they do not get into that at all. Well, Henry Allen is released from court. Barry Allen gets to go on a date with Iris West, finally. And then Bruce Wayne calls and his voice sounds familiar and different. But it's not Ben Affleck Bruce Wayne that shows up, nor is it Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne that shows up. No, it's this guy. George Clooney as Bruce Wayne shows up, and my God, in my audience, I know there was a lot of older DC fans, and they knew what was up. They laughed and gasped and actually clapped and cheered, and I was like, there he is, George Clooney, Bruce Wayne, he showed up, there he is. And yeah, that was a huge shocker, and it does play off as a comedic effect because Barry Allen's tooth comes out. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. And that's pretty much it at the end of the movie, but then we get into the post-credit scene. We see another Justice League member show up, and that's Arthur Curry. Barry talks to Arthur about the different Batmans and the timelines, but Arthur is really drunk and he just falls into the puddle in the street. But it does get me wondering, because this is the Flash movie, Aquaman The Lost Kingdom is coming out the end of this year. Will Aquaman The Lost Kingdom be a sequel to The Flash, in which, in this world, in this universe, will we actually get to see George Clooney as Batman show up? We know that they shot Michael Keaton as Bruce Wayne, but then they, flipped the scheduling of the movies, so they shot Ben Affleck as Bruce Wayne. Well, now that the end of the movie, and it's not even a post-credit scene, it is the actual end of the Flash movie, where we see that George Clooney is the Batman Bruce Wayne of this new universe, will they have secretly also shot George Clooney as Bruce Wayne in Aquaman The Lost Kingdom? I don't know. I guess time will tell, and we'll actually find out at the end of this year. But it is kind of sad because Michael Keaton's Batman and Sasha Calle's Supergirl ends up dead. Are they fated to die in the other universe? Are they somewhere where they're still alive somewhere? That part is a little sad. Because as I've said before, the alternate ending to this whole thing is that Sasha Calle's Supergirl and Michael Keaton Bruce Wayne shows up at the courthouse instead of George Clooney's Batman. But with James Gunn rebooting the whole universe, do they still exist? Are they just fated to die over and over? I don't know. And does that mean George Clooney is Batman now, or what's going on? Because it was confirmed today that Andy Muschietti and Barbara Muschietti are going to be producing and directing Batman Brave and the Bold, the official new Batman movie for the new DCU. Is George Clooney Batman? Interesting questions. But like I said, this movie, to me, it's a celebration of DC, but it does feel like a bittersweet ending to the DCEU. Alright, hopefully you have seen the Flash movie before checking out this video, but let me know your thoughts about The Flash.